Hi folks, you're with Tassus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the advent of a professional political class, a bunch of time servers, seat warmers, flunkies, people who are just there to provide a shadow or a semblance of what democracy should be, of where the elected representatives of the people go to make the laws on behalf of the people. Now, we know that in the globalist project, they're dismantling that sort of democracy as quickly as they can. In fact, they've largely succeeded in the Western world. They control, who stands for election, pretty much. They control who gets elected. And if perchance someone they don't like looks like they're going to get up, then they'll just rig the election. So that's where we're at now in the West. But it's not that easy to just get a bunch of compliant little puppets sitting in Congress or in Parliament or in any elected or so-called elected body. And it's certainly going back to when I first became sort of even somewhat politically aware. Most of the people in Parliament, not all, but most of the people in Parliament were people who had work experience and life experience. They shared the sort of burdens and challenges and tribulations of life that other people had. Whether it was uncertainty over job continuity, whether it was whether the health services were adequate to look after their children or their loved ones, the ability to put food on the table, and so on and so. Every challenge that was faced by pretty much any and every citizen within a range was shared by the people who you elected to Parliament. Now, the idea was that the people you elected came from your town, your community, your area, your part of the city. They lived there all their lives. You knew them. They knew the people there, and the people who best knew you would then decide to send you to the federal Parliament or the Congress, and off you'd go with the blessing and the support of the people. If you failed to represent them, then they would not vote for you the next time round. So you had to be able to justify your policies, your positions, and explain it to them in town hall meetings or out on the hustings at election time. And again, if you couldn't do that or did it ineffectively, they would, in all probability, select someone else to represent them. Now, that was sort of formed in the days before strict party politics existed. So there's been organic changes since then where parties have had a big administrative machine backing them that's centralised, that goes out and gets donations from people, and that party machine has had a much bigger say in picking and selecting who goes where and who's electable. Oh, there's a Spanish people or Hispanic people in that part of the city. Gee, we better get someone Hispanic there just to communicate directly with them, someone they identify with, someone they're comfortable with. Well, shouldn't we get someone who's actually qualified to no. We want someone who's a conduit to that community. Now, they can be the biggest idiot in the universe, but as long as they're a conduit to that community, and they're Hispanic, we'll give them a Hispanic candidate. So things like that have naturally corrupted the legal system, the political system, or certainly its intent, or originally how it was conceived and derived. And particularly given the whole concept of democracy was built around quite a homogenous society, that even if they had differences, say somebody came from Italy or someone came from Ireland or whatever, that they may have had certain differences about the use of olive oil or garlic or whatever, but they shared all the same values ostensibly as in terms of wanting democratic representation and wanting effective laws and wanting an efficient, well-functioning society, courts of law, due legal process, rule of law, all that sort of stuff. They shared all those values. That's, of course, changing today. People from these third world basket cases, they don't give a shit about any of that. They're just there to freeload on the goodies. Gimme handout, to free this, free that. That's what they're there for, and they don't share any of the values that someone who grew up and has tradition in Western society. But looking at the, certainly when I became politically aware, well, to the limited degree that a kid does, something that I noticed was most of the politicians, again, not all, but most of them weren't getting into politics until they were in their 40s. Later, in some cases, they had a lot of work experience, life experience. They knew what it was like to try and get by in the world, and again, to suffer and share those tribulations with the people that voted for them. Now, that's significantly changed. Today, most of the people in Parliament are professional. Oh, professional's the wrong word. Hangers on to the political system, hangers on to the coattails of the big party machine politics. They're not. They've got no life experience. They've got no work experience. They've just been part of the rigged, fixed, corrupt political machine from day one. They worked as staffers in an office, so they'll go straight from high school where they've been student activists, so they're just ideological. They go straight to college to study some fucking bullshit degree that nobody fails. Then they're, if they've been identified as political material, like say a young Obama was, and that sort of thing, useful to the machine. Because Obama was a useless fucking president, but he was useful to the machine. He was black. He was reasonably, he was good at reading off a teleprompter. All the coaching he got on how to deliver speeches, he was quite good at that. I thought his speech delivery was quite good. He was just useless in every other respect, in my view. And so, he created race and social division along lines that nobody with half a brain would want to. But anyway, so if you have a look at these people, they're staffers, they go to university, study the bullshit degree, then they're given a job in a politician's office as some flunky, a social engagement consultant or some bullshit like that. Their job is to spew sort of leftist globalist propaganda out on Twitter or Facebook or something like that. And then when a spot comes up and they're duly anointed as being a good ideological flunky time server who'll vote the way they're told to, whose eyes are dazzled by the silliest, most childlike, stupidest ideologies, then they'll be given a seat or a district in Parliament, and they'll be given a winnable seat. Most likely it's always going to vote Democrat, and they'll be given one of those seats and or electoral districts, and then next they're in federal parliament, and they're like an AOC, although that her script didn't follow that exactly, but an AOC or an Ayanna Presley or a Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar, any of those people, and others. Look at Lindsey Graham, for example. So in the United States, so these sort of people are then shoehorned into these roles, and then they become reliable passengers, seat warmers, and flunkies. They've got nothing to offer the people of the country. They'll add no value to the political system at all. They're there to vote as they're told. Now, talking a little bit about intimidation of politicians that maybe get a bit of a conscience, or they have a really radical, edgy view that they're actually there to represent the people, because that they'll be smacked down instantly by the globalist party machine if they do that. You think you represent the people who voted for you? You stupid fucking moron. You vote as the fuck we tell you to vote. That'll be more or less the conversation that takes place. But the party machine has huge powers to intimidate and coerce, threaten, and reward people that do as they're told. So, okay, you're a parliamentarian or a congressman or something like that, and there are lots of goodies they dangle in front of you. So they'll say, well, if you're prepared to vote in a certain way, or you're expected to vote in a certain way, and you can go on to some some committee that's meant to be deciding what legislation goes to the floor to be voted on. Of course, the globalists have already predetermined, what's going to go to what isn't. So you're going to go through the motions to make it look like the political democratic process is working. I mean, it's not, but that's how it's meant to look. So you get put on a committee now. This is not exactly the same in every Congress or Parliament, but using ones I'm aware of, that you can get an extra. Now the committee meets for say 3 hours a month, 4 hours a month, something like that. It's very well catered for. You get some really nice food brought in, and so they get 4 hours a month. So one meeting a month is what it's going to be. You can then send deputies if you want. One of your flunky staffers can go along to these things as your deputy or plenipotentiary or whatever. So you've got this 4 hours now. You may get paid $30,000 or $40,000 a year for being on this committee. So let's say you're on $170,000, $180,000 a year as a congressman. So you can get an extra, let's say $35,000 a year this committee, and they'll put you on another couple of committees because there are a shitload of committees. So suddenly your income's gone from 170 to 250, 290,000, 300,000 a year. So you've got another $60,000 to say, put in your back pocket on top of your ordinary salary. You're making a lot of contacts there on these committees. You're getting a lot of extra publicity, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of good. And on top of that, when you're on these committees have to go on study tours. You've got to go to other countries around the world. And you may only have to spend a few hours talking to, say, another politician or an alleged expert somewhere in some other country, and then you fly there first or business class. You get to stay in a nice hotel. You get a couple of staffers to go with you, maybe your wife or husband or partner or something. Get to go as well, all paid for by the taxpayer. And you can have while you're there, you can stay there for say a few weeks to enjoy some nice beachfront thing there, and maybe a few people are going to come to the beachfront hotel to meet you and talk about whatever. So that's all paid for as well. So you can have a 5-star vacation at a very nice place, all paid for by the taxpayer. And you don't just get one of these a year; you get several a year. You get every time Congress or Parliament is in break time. This is ostensibly time when you can go and talk to your constituents, but your constituents are the globalists. They're the ones that decide whether you stay in Parliament or Congress or whether you go and so on. So you're there to do their bidding, not to. You'll go through the motions and talk to a few black lesbians in your office to make it look good, but otherwise you're off on vacation to these exotic locations, all paid for by the taxpayer, but granted to you by the party machine, which is, of course, controlled by the globalists. Now, suppose you don't go along. You say, screw you to the party machine. I'm going to vote this way or that way. Now, straight away, you won't be on any committees. Bang, gone. So any extra income you're hoping to make is just sailed out the window. You're only rewarded for doing as you're told. So you don't get any of that. That's all gone. When it comes to the overseas trips, the extravagant vacations you can have on the taxpayers at the taxpayers' expense, gone. You won't be going anywhere. You'll be lucky to be, take a ferry across the East River in New York. That'll be the extent of your traveling. So you'll all the benefits of that they can shower upon you disappear instantly. And they won't come back until you do what the fuck you're told. If you still hold out, at the end of the electoral term, then they'll throw you out. You're no use to them. You're there to vote as you're fucking told, not to have some sort of, not to make radical decisions like you represent the people. So we've seen a change in the parliaments where the majority now are time servers. As an example in Australia, if I go through the politicians here, there's very few now that have any sort of life experience. There's a few that say, well, I had my own legal practice. I was a lawyer. I had my own legal practice. Well, yeah, but you relied 100% on government business that was funneled your way. You didn't have to go and win it. It was just handed to you, and you did very, very nicely, thank you, out of effectively what was just a river of taxpayer money that was running into running into the front door of your legal practice. That's not a fucking business. That's not someone out there having to make a success of anything. It's someone who was gifted a very luxurious standard of living and a luxurious income, all through a patronage system. So they've just moved from one patronage system to another, or an extension of really the same one. So they haven't actually gone out and done anything. They have achieved nothing. So that's not a work or life experience in my view. So, but the people who've gone out and done something with their lives and achieved things in their own right, they're the sort of people that I believe should be representing us in Parliament, not people that are blow-ins and parachuted-ins and carpetbaggers and so on that are put in there by the party machine. That's bullshit. And I think we need to revisit the original concepts of democracy, that you elect people who've lived in your area all their lives, or certainly all their adult lives, and they're the people that you send to Parliament to represent you, who must have life experience, work experience, and have achieved something in their own right. And I believe that's critical if we're to return democracy to the people and to have it as a functioning system of government. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.